Hello and welcome to another episode of Around the Verse. I'm Steve Bender.
And I'm Sean Tracy.
You may remember us from a recent episode of Reverse the Verse, where we accidentally destroyed half of the universe.
I thought we weren't supposed to talk about that, though.
We weren't?
No. First time.
Okay.
This is the first time.
In that case, I'm Steve Bender, and I couldn't be happier to make my first ever appearance on the internet.
There you go. This week, we'll see what's up with Legacy Armor and take a guided tour of the Osiris system with one of our resident Loremakers.
Exciting stuff, but first, let's go to Ricky Jutley for our weekly Star Citizen project update.
Do your thing, Ricky.
Welcome to yet another update on Star Citizen's persistent universe. Character teams have been working on helmet HUDs. Here you can see some tests with different helmet visor glass effects that add realism to the proceedings. Animations are being tweaked and improved for several NPCs and mission givers.
What the hell are you getting? I am done working with you.
Battaglia's animations are looking good and being prepped for the game.
I'm in the thick of it. Maybe some other time.
And the animation teams have been working on more diverse personalities for NPCs as well, like you see with this perpetually annoyed shopkeeper.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. Why can't anyone put things back where they found them? It's not my job to pick up after you.
Quantum linking is receiving attention. Here we see some examples of the UI as it relates to calibrating for QT. The gameplay teams have also been testing linking, and quantum spline jumps to help with alignments as ships come out of QT. The branding and visual variation for shopping kiosks is being added and tested, as we see here. And the new grouping system is going through wireframe mockups, with Spectrum Mobiglass integration nearing the end of this particular design phase. Visuals for the mining laser and tractor beam that we saw in progress last week continue to be refined. You can see here some of the work that has been done on power allocation. In this example, you can see how the vehicle feature team is adjusting the prioritization system and how it is reflected in the cockpit's UI. And here we see progress on the scanning system as the team fine-tunes the logistics of searching for mineable entities, awaiting visual elements from the VFX team. Some of these elements can be seen here, in their most recent pass on the scanning grid. Our props team has added even more items to the utilitarian set. Wear and tear is being added to the set to increase visual diversity and grittiness when the situation calls for it. They've also been finding new uses for the glass shader that we got a glimpse of in the last Squadron 42 project update, as shown here with their work on greenhouses. The development and implementation of the shader tech is sure to have a myriad of benefits across both Squadron 42 and the persistent universe. Finally, let's take a few more looks at the development of Hurston and Lorville as the environment art team continues to refine these locations for their debut in Alpha 3.3. Also, we are doing visual development work into biome asset packs and potential ways in which we can build these into sandbox gameplay experiences for the player. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Ricky. Remember, you can always follow the roadmap yourself on the RSI website.
As we've seen in updates over the last few weeks, the character team has been working on revamping some of the Legacy Armor sets.
The idea with Legacy Armor is to create historical variants of a few different types of armors for visual diversity and to inject a bit of history into their lore.
Let's take a look at the design process in this week's feature.
So in 3.2, we're finally ready to release the Legacy Armors that we talked to you about back in October. It's been a long time, and we've been kind of working on them slowly over the past 6 to 8 months, but we're ready to show them to you. The main reason we were redoing all the Legacy Armors was because we needed to redesign them and make them fit into the modularity system and the customization system for the characters. We wanted to kind of maintain the existing look of the Legacy Armor sets that you guys have all seen for a long time, and we were kind of hesitant to remove them for a little while because we knew that players and backers had gotten used to seeing them and had gotten attached to them. So we really wanted to spend our time with them, and we're finally ready to show them to you.
Modularity is always the biggest challenge for an armor. We like the saying that, the more modular you make something, the less different they become. So there's a sameness that happens when you make things fit together, and that was the hardest thing we had to fight.
So with the Legacy armors, there was Outlaws and there was Marines. One of the things we wanted to do with the Legacy Marines was to write them back into the lore as an older version. So the CDS Marines you've been seeing in Star Marine and 3.0 and even 3.1 have been newer versions. But in 3.2, the Legacy Marines are actually going to be older, they're going to be more retro, a little bit older materials, and you'll probably see them in certain shops specifically to give them a little bit more of a theming than the newer ones. For the Legacy Outlaws, we wanted to redesign them but keep the same themes. Material-wise, manufacturer-wise, they can go anything, right? They're not built from a specific manufacturer. They can be mix and match of all different kinds of things, just like a typical Outlaw would be. But we wanted to kind of update them and fit them into the modular system and make sure that they would work.
I think players look for control over the games that they play. Being able to customize your character or even your ship to appeal to you as a player yourself really lets you stand out in that way. Since every single armor piece, whether it be under our UEE Marines or our Navy flight suits, you can mix it up even with our slavers to really, in a way, redesign what we've created for you to make it more personal.
It's easier for us, especially for example, for Squadron, or maybe some random enemies, or even random NPCs in the PU. We could just swap things in and out and set those up instead of making brand new assets every single time.
From us, from Jeremiah to character art, for implementation to tech art, I think it was being skinned in our game. So it's all finished up.
Yeah, that's right.
Right after that, I jumped on the light Legacy Marine, which was kind of fun for me because I kind of got to be my own concept artist.
Yes.
Because along with most of the Legacy armors, we didn't have concept art for. I think that kind of helped in the design because it allowed us to look at what we used to have in our original Legacy armors and kind of let that drive the vision for what the new updated Legacy armors would look like.
I did the heavy Marine Legacy and the light Outlaw, and Michael Broussard did the heavy Outlaw. But for the other like 3 or 4 armors or so, we had the character artists, overseen by Josh Herman, of course, kind of get the essence of the original armors and just update them to match the zones, bring up the quality of the sculpt, and also just the aesthetic in general. And also, I think there weren't that many materials, I believe, in the originals.
We have a huge library of materials for character armors or clothing. We probably have, I don't know, at least 100 materials that allow us to create variation in color or material itself. We've been recently working on the color variants for our armor sets. So I think right now each character armor set sits at around 21 variations of color, or 21 colors, 21 variants, I should say.
Yeah. Originally, the Outlaw and the Marine concepts were done a lot from contract, different artists. So we had different flavors from here and there, which is cool, because it innovates things and it pushes things in boundaries. The problem was there was no similarities between, it seemed like everything was built by different manufacturers, so we had to bring that in. So when it was kind of, when we decided to update the armors, we decided to unify designs, materials, colors. And so I think it was a much needed upgrade. And then we were tasked to make legacy versions of that, so the before version. So we were kind of slightly confused in the beginning, but it's like, how do you say, a less sophisticated, less streamlined version of the Marine armor, and also the Outlaw as well, while making it look aesthetically pleasing, functional. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And so our answer to that problem was introducing more softer materials, like leather, cloth.
Exposed wiring,
yeah.
hoses.
Exactly. I think the light Marine shows that a lot, I think.
Yeah.
With Shade, that he has like a hose that goes through the the chest. The biggest example of multiple materials that would probably be
Male Legacy.
Male Legacy CDS heavy armor
01.
01 is probably the best example of that because it has all different sorts of different materials. We have different kinds of cloth, different kinds of leather, different kinds of metals, just kind of stitched together. It still looks cool, and it looks more brutish, I think, compared to the current Marines.
But also kind of gives us more opportunity to design.
Yes.
Because with less streamline, it's more detail.
Yes.
So instead of covering everything up to be, fitted, very studied, everything just kind of like, it works. We have to figure out how to put it together.
Right.
But with that, we have to design a visual as artists to kind of tell that story. So with things that aren't streamlined, we have to kind of show this exposure of detail to make it believable that this armor set will actually work.
But taking a step back and removing those innovations was a little difficult for the concept and also a little bit on the character art. And because we had to be like, this will look really cool right now, but then we have to remove that potential innovation and make it look less streamlined than.
The intent with this guy was to stay true to the original. We actually went through a couple different iterations. I first got put on this character with kind of a blue sky on it, like, kind of do what you want, see what you can pick and pull from the original concepts, like concepts that didn't get completed the first time it was made, like years ago. And myself and Jeremiah, like, kind of refined that. He did a really cool concept, which I think everybody's seen, where he reconcepted it, and I riffed off that, changed a few things with the help of he and Josh. I think he came up with something pretty cool. It's mixed media, which is like my favorite thing about it, meaning that it's leather, cloth, metal. It's not just an armored marine suit that's all metal or, rubbers and stuff like that. It's a little bit of everything, which is something I really like. It'll have he has like a scarf / cape on the back, so that'll have a sim on it in the game, which is cool. And it's a combination of painted maps and tileable maps for those of you out there who are like super into the, into that stuff. The volume specifications were difficult on this guy in the sense that since it is such a tight fitting light armor, it was really difficult for it to be close fitting, but also adhere to the volume requirements that we have in order to make our characters modular, right? There has to be like a defined minimum maximum, like range in every direction that an armor or a clothing set or whatever can fit within, so that those parts can be made swappable, so the players can customize their characters. So when it gets put in engine, whether that's the arm region, the chest region, or core region, legs, helmet, like all those things can be, swapped. You can make your character look as cool or as goofy as you want,
So for the volumes, they can be simplified basically as like 4 regions. You have the helmet, the arms, torso, and the legs. And they have very specific cutoffs to make sure they all fit together. And a challenge can be making them look artistically interesting while still all having the same cut region. So we'll have like specific like overlaps and like buffer zones that they all need to fit within. The character artist and Jeremiah character team worked around those creatively to get the unique looks that we have and to make it look special.
A good design is visually if you can pour water on top of the character, and if the lines on the suit are considered like little wedges. If there are a lot of those horizontal wedges and the water stops, that's not a good design. So the water actually has to flow through. And the reason why I use water, Rob McKinnon told me this actually back in the day, is because your eye is kind of like water when you look at something. Your eyes go from the top down. And so a good design will actually have your eye flow through the character. And so a lot of the current Marine armor, there was a lot of that in mind. For the Legacy armor, I try to do less of that. So it looks less streamlined, so it looks a little chunkier. And just having Legacy armors in general shows a length of time, right? And it shows that you're not just thrown into a universe that doesn't have any history, right? We want our our NPCs, our characters in the game, the lore itself, to feel like there has been history, there has been pain, there has been wars, there has been innovation, and we really want to show that to our backers. And so we want you to be really immersed into a world that's been quote unquote ongoing before the players even start the game. And so Legacy Armor is a way to, I think, show kind of the remnants of those history.
So really, with Legacy Armor, we're kind of telling a story of evolution in our world.
And it shows, it helps with storytelling, and we just want to focus on a lot of those details and not just present to you a green armor and say that's Marine.
So I'm looking forward to getting all these legacy armors into 3.2. One of the best parts about that is we're going to have 6 new armor sets for the players to customize their characters with. That means they can customize them with all the previous armor sets we've already done. So all our Slaver sets, all our CDS sets, all our RSI sets, all our Odyssey sets, all that stuff is going to be customizable and swappable with all this stuff. We're working really hard, and we're going to get them to you guys as soon as we can, and that's actually going to be in 3.2.
Legacy Armor feature. Thanks, guys. With some of the reworked Legacy Armor sets due out in Alpha 3.2, it won't be long till we see them rocked out in the persistent universe and see how many bullets they can take in Star Marine.
Yeah, and if blasting your friends in Star Marine is your thing, we've got a contest going on to make your own tutorial videos for that multiplayer mode, as well as Arena Commander.
The winners will take home some cool prizes and have their work immortalized on the Star Citizen website. So grab a weapon or hop in a ship and get shooting. Get it? No.
No. Anyway, maybe you're not the dogfighting type and would rather explore the universe, take in its sights and learn its history.
If that's the case, we have you covered too. Let lead writer Will Weisbaum whisk you away to the developing Osiris system in a new Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm your host, senior writer Will Weisbaum, aka the Yellow Lion of the Narrative Voltron. Yeah, so let's get right into it. Today we're going to the Fair Chance Act system of Osiris. It is 2.3 AU wide, and it is anchored by this fantastic orange K-type sun. It's a thing of beauty. Look at all those rays shining out of it in our beautiful star map. Feel free to open yours up now and follow along at home. So what's really interesting is that this is the first Fair Chance Act protected system. The system itself was first discovered in 2788. It was discovered by a starman who was on shore leave in the neighboring system of Goss. You can see that jump point right here. And this was kind of a bit of a stick in the mud starman, because rather than parting with all his fellow naval personnel on the beaches of Goss, he decided to continue working and practicing up repairing a scanning ship that was down for the count. And so he did the repairs during his time, and he went out to go test the thing. And at first he thought that the repairs didn't work because he picked up strange readings, but it turns out his repairs did work. The scanning vessel was just detecting the jump point to a brand new system, Osiris. So he came through and everyone was very excited, but unfortunately, any excitement around the discovery of this new system was overshadowed by some political turmoil that was happening at the time. So very shortly after the discovery in 2789, that's when Senator Akerai had negotiated the peace treaty with Emperor Krei of the Xi'an, and this was seen as a huge slap in the face of the Messer regime that he was willing to go behind their backs to negotiate this peace. And so the Messers found themselves on shaky ground, so rather than exploring or doing any of the normal things, they quickly tried to consolidate their power, and
Osiris was forgotten for a short while. In the years after, in 2795 we had or 2792, apologies, was the massacre of Garin II, which was when terraforming had wiped out the native population of Garin II, this development species, and protests started from there, and the protests caused a chain reaction, which eventually led to the Messers being overthrown and the new government rising up in its place. This new UEE, one of the first things they did under the guidance of Aaron Toyd, the new imperator, was enact the Fair Chance Act, which was determined to protect future developing species from being wiped out as they had been on Garin II. So when the government finally got back around to doing a survey of Osiris, one of the first things they found on Osiris 1 was a developing species. So they were very quick to use their new policy to place the whole system under the purview of the Fair Chance Act, making a historical moment there. Now, there was some great concern. The government had just gone through a big shakeup. Things were still coming into place, and it was going to be a major cost for the government and the Navy in order to protect a full system and protect this world from molestation. So a lot of the conservative senators at the time were kind of concerned about the large cost of paying to protect the system and the world where the developing species was and implement a Navy force here. So in order to offset the cost, they got approval to sell specific special licenses for Osiris 2 to be harvested. Now, Osiris 2 is a large gas giant on the outer edge of the system. And so today, there's a bunch of refineries and collectors set up about the world, as well as stations to service the people who work there. It's all very controlled about who can conduct business here. But the Navy, for the most part, focuses on the center core of the system as far as its forces go. So on the outside of the system is a little more of a wildlands. A lot of the scientists who are stationed here to study Osiris 1 complain about these kind of outsider influences in Osiris 2, as a lot of the smuggling operations and a lot of the outlaws in the system operate from these smaller outposts out here. But because it is bringing revenue into for the government, for the UEE, they've been allowed to continue to operate. However, most people who are operating out here try to keep things on a smaller scale because they know if they do get too big, the Navy will come in with a swift hammer and shut them down. This has happened. Now they also try to sell licenses to mine the Osiris asteroid belt. Now, this is one of the densest asteroid belts in UEE space, but unfortunately, it's also one of the most volatile. There's a lot of motion going in, which makes it very hazardous to mine. So they weren't able to successfully have large mining operations come in here. Because also it is very volatile, you get a lot of rogue asteroids being flung out into the rest of the system, which often causes a concern for Osiris 1 on the inside here. So they're often, the Navy will set up or hire contractors to destroy rogue asteroids whose trajectory comes too close towards the planet. From there, we're gonna head into Etos, or Etos, depending on where you're from. People from Earth say Etos, people from Terra say Etos. It's a thing. Orbiting around the planet, we have the main, most populated area in the system, which is Observation Station Cobalt. From here is where they host all the naval personnel and scientists who are in the system to study Etos, Osiris 1. And so most of the motion in this inner part of the system is towards Cobalt. And you also have, the casual, people, haulers and stuff who are bringing supplies and services to them. You also very recently have some tourists who are getting special approval to come visit the station as well, because of recently a smuggler ship was discovered with a huge cache of apes aboard. Now these are the creatures that gave the system Fair Chance Act protection. We'll talk a little bit more about them in a little bit. But the smuggler ship was discovered with all of them in the hold, and they were too injured to be sent back down to the planet. It was too big of a risk. So instead they were brought up to the station where a habitat was created from them. So a lot of people now go visit the station in order to get a first-hand up-close experience with these creatures. But that's very limited and very new, so we'll see how it goes. But it's been doing great things for the general cause of the Fair Chance Act, which has been going through another resurgence. A lot of people would like to see the Fair Chance Act ended. There's people who deride the cost and say, like, you know, humans kind of should be able to do what they want with these planets, that there's a lot of development that could happen for the betterment of humanity, and we're protecting these planets just because the creatures may develop into something. There's also people on the other side of the debate who are pushing to end the Fair Chance Act because they believe humanity has a duty to kind of lift up these creatures. If these creatures do have the potential to become, you know, functioning futuristic societies, shouldn't we help them along, give our neighbors a hand? So there's those two kind of warring sides. So Cobalt is doing its part to kind of sing the praises of the good work of the Fair Chance Act and the research it's doing. So from Cobalt, we go now to the planet itself. Now, this planet is located on the very inner edge of the green belt, and you can see the green band. You can see it here. And what that means is that the surface itself is very hot and inhospitable, even though there's a few creatures who do manage to survive out there. Where life was really able to develop is because the surface itself is very porous and features this massive network of caves running through a lot of the planet. And so it's down there that all this life developed in like these warm cavern systems. There's different like spiny crustaceans. There's this one creature that the planet is kind of known for that's colloquially called the flopping pancake, which is kind of named because it's this gelatinous disc thing and it clings to the walls of caverns, and how it moves around is a gentle kind of peeling and flopping over. And sticks back on and then flops again. So it's kind of fun. But the main thing, the reason why it's Fair Chance Act protected is the Ferrous Ape. And these are kind of humanoid-like, ape-like creatures who've developed a little bit of society, and they have the potential to develop further, is what those studying them think. It's very difficult to study them because unlike other Fair Chance worlds where you can use observational telescopes from orbit to watch what's happening, because everything is underneath the surface, they've had to kind of get clever with it. A lot of drone work is being done to observe them, and it's a lot more risky, so they have to be extra careful in how they study these creatures. There was a bit of a hubbub recently because it seemed one of the groups of apes was found with the corpse of a fully decked out smuggler who must have perished in the caves or died trying to do something. And so the apes had found this body and all the equipment that it came with, so scientists were very worried about what effect that would have on the culture. So it's still remaining to be seen now that that kind of quarantine has been broken. But that is the Osiris system. So it's a pretty fun place, and it will be interesting to see how the debate over the Fair Chance Act continues to develop as the UE progresses. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Thank you to all the subscribers for helping create shows just like this. And I hope to see you all in the verse out there. Thanks.
Thanks for making with the lore, Will.
And for all you aspiring lore makers out there in our community, we just wrapped up a short story contest. The narrative and community teams are busy reading through all your entries, and from the sounds of it, There's been a lot of great submissions.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no shortage of uses for our latest concept ship, the Crusader Hercules. You can read the stories for yourself on Spectrum, and we'll be announcing the winners soon.
The first wave of CitizenCon ticket sales comes to an end tomorrow.
Yes, but stay tuned in the coming months for more chances to join us at the Long Center in Austin, Texas, at what promises to be the best damn CitizenCon yet.
For all your Q&A needs, don't forget to tune in to Reverse the Verse live tomorrow at noon PDT on Twitch, and check out Monday's episode of Calling All Devs if you've missed it.
Thanks to all of our wonderful subscribers for sponsoring our shows and letting us entertain you.
And thanks, of course, to all our backers for making the development of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible.
That's all for us this week. Until next time, we'll see you around the verse.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertsspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.